No, no, no. Where's this train even going? This isn't my train, Evan Carter bellowed in the middle of San Francisco's jam-packed station, clutching his pricey leather briefcase, his crisp gray suit now crumpled like it had survived a tornado. At 32, this Silicon Valley tech titan ran a top-tier company, but he just leapt onto a sluggish commuter train instead of the high-speed express to his million-dollar meeting. His phone buzzed like a swarm of bees, his assistant blowing it up. But all he could muster was a grumble. I pay her a fortune to keep me from getting lost like this. Too late. The train chugged off, hauling him away from the city and apparently any trace of 4G. Hey, 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 get ready for a rom-com ride that'll melt your heart and tickle your funny bone. Picture this. Evan Carter, a hotshot San Francisco CEO, yells, "This isn't my train," as he hops on a slow-poke ride by mistake, ditching a million-dollar meeting for nowhere. He lands in tiny Cedar Creek where Grace, a sassy small-town baker, smashes pies into his fancy suit and his lonely life. Will this wrong train take him to true love or total chaos? Smash that like button if you're hyped for this wild mix-up. Drop your city in the comments. Where are you watching from? Subscribe now. Let's hit 1,000 subs to roll out more sweet love stories. Hit play. This millionaire is about to find out the best things in life aren't on the fast track. Evan slumped onto a stiff wooden seat, peering out the window as skyscrapers gave way to rolling meadows and trees. Where am I? On a medieval road trip? He muttered, rubbing his face as the train screeched to a halt at Cedar Creek, a tiny speck of a town he'd never heard of. He stepped onto the platform, his polished loafers sinking into mud, phone flashing, no signal, and no ride back to San Francisco until morning. Perfect, he sighed, stranded in a place with no Uber, no Wi-Fi, and probably no civilization. Evan Carter wasn't the type to get lost, or rather, he never let himself. Back in San Francisco, he was the king of tech, ruling from a sleek penthouse, zooming with fat cat investors, yet so lonely he'd fall asleep with his laptop instead of a warm body. The company's pressure and the hollow ache inside wore him thin, but he buried it under a polished grin. Now, stranded in Cedar Creek with a wrinkled suit, he felt like a fish flopping on dry land. And for the first time, he had no clue what to do. Dragging his suitcase, he trudged down a dirt road toward town, mumbling, "Just find a coffee shop, charge my phone, and call someone to yank me out of this dump." But as he hit the heart of Cedar Creek, a quaint strip of wooden storefronts with the morning bloom glowing softly ahead, a girl burst out of the shop, arms full of a pastry tray, and crashed right into him. Apple turnovers rained down, splattering his suit with cinnamon-scented chaos. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry," she yelped, voice pure panic. Evan looked at her, hair in a high ponytail, apron dusted with flour, eyes sparkling like stars, and forgot he was mad. "It's fine," he said, even though his suit now looked like a walking dessert. Little did he know, he just stumbled off the wrong train into a fated and fateful meet cute with Grace Monroe, the woman about to turn his world upside down. Evan Carter stood on Cedar Creek's dirt road, his gray suit now a cinnamon-scented canvas of apple pastry crumbs. He stared at the masterpiece plastered across his chest, muttering, "I survived a hellish train ride just to get ambushed by dessert. Fantastic." In front of him, Grace Monroe, the girl who'd crashed into him, blushed, brushing flour off her apron, stammering, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't see you. I was just taking these to the shop." She bent to grab her tray, then looked up, her sparkling eyes scanning him head to toe. "You, a lost tourist? Why are you rocking a fancy suit out here?" Evan, still clinging to his CEO swagger, straightened up. "I'm not lost. I'm a VIP everywhere but that damn train station." Grace blinked, then burst out laughing. "A VIP with apple turnover all over him? You're the VIPiest lost guy I've ever seen." Evan opened his mouth to argue, but her smile, carefree, radiant, stopped him cold. He wasn't used to this. Someone laughing so naturally, no agenda, no awe. In San Francisco, smiles came with contracts or cash. This girl, she had no clue who he was, and shockingly, he found that refreshing. Come on, don't just stand there, Grace said, dusting her hands on her apron. Get inside. I'll hook you up with a hot coffee. You need caffeine more than pride right now. Evan frowned. Coffee? I only do oat milk lattes from trained baristas. Grace shrugged. In Cedar Creek, it's black coffee or well water. Pick one, Mr. VIP. He sighed, reluctantly following her into the Morning Bloom, a cozy little joint with worn wooden tables and the warm scent of baked goods filling the air. Grace plunked a mug of black coffee in front of him, grinning. Try it. It won't kill you. Evan took a sip, then spat it out, choking. What is this? Dishwater? Grace doubled over, laughing. Welcome to Cedar Creek. It's our homemade special. No oat milk here. Evan wiped his mouth, ready to snap, but seeing her cackle, he cracked a grin, his first real smile in months. You're awful at coffee, he said, tension easing. Grace winked. And you look pathetic in that pastry-crusted suit. Call it even? They sat across from each other in the tiny shop. Grace shared she was a server and baker, living with her dad in a little house by the lake. This town's got no glitz, she said, but at least I'm not racing deadlines or zooming all day. Evan watched her, stunned at how her simplicity lightened his load. You're not going to ask who I am, he probed. Grace shrugged. Don't care if you're a VIP or whatever. You're lost. I'm helping. That's it. Besides, you look more like a city boy chased by geese than a big shot. Evan laughed, a real unguarded laugh. He couldn't believe he felt this at ease with a stranger who just trashed his favorite suit. Geese chased? He echoed. Grace nodded. Yup, watch out. They're by the lake and don't mess around. He glanced out the window at the sunset glowing over the small town, and for the first time in years, he didn't want to call his assistant for a rescue. Grace slid the last apple turnover his way. Eat up, don't waste it. No charge. Consider it suit compensation. Evan grabbed the pastry, thinking, I missed my train, but I might have just stumbled onto something worth way more. Evan Carter stepped out of the Morning Bloom, his head still spinning from Grace Monroe's dishwater coffee. He glanced at her, hair tied high, catching the golden afternoon light, eyes bright as a morning lake, and wondered why he'd let her drag him outside. Take a walk, she said, her voice breezy as the wind over Cedar Creek's meadows. You need to see this place before dark. It'll make you forget that dead phone of yours. Evan smirked, ready to say no, but her sparkling gaze hooked him. He shoved his hands into his pastry-crusted suit pockets, muttering, I don't stroll, I zoom. But fine, one time won't kill me. They wandered down a sun-dappled dirt road, past wooden houses straight out of an old painting, the air thick with pine and baked goods. Grace pointed at the general store. Old Joe's cash only, no cards. Evan flashed his shiny credit card. What's this get me? Joe shook his head, chuckling. Take it back to San Francisco, city boy. Evan blinked, sighing. This place is like stepping into my mom's era. No tech, no deadlines. Grace shrugged, smiling softly. Maybe you need to get lost a little, to find what you've dropped along the way. At the lake's edge, the water shimmered gold under the sunset. Evan pulled out his phone to snap a pic, a reflex from a life of capturing everything. But before he could, a flock of geese charged, pecking at his loafers. I'm a CEO, not lunch, he yelled, sprinting in circles, suit flapping, nearly slipping into the water. Grace doubled over, her laugh ringing like wind chimes. They don't read Forbes, Evan. Run, Mr. VIP. He escaped, hair a mess, panting. But when he saw her, hair flying, cheeks pink, he forgot his fury. You're prettier when you laugh like that, he blurted, then spun away, face blazing. I mean, those geese suck. They hit the town's little fair next, where an old lady spotted him and chirped, You the organizer? So fancy. Before Evan could correct her, Grace jumped in, eyes twinkling with mischief. Yup, he's here selling VIP apple turnovers. Locals swarmed him for photos, and Evan glared at her. You've turned me into a clown. But Grace tilted her head, whispering, You're cuter when you're flustered. Don't be mad. Her words slipped through his proud shell like a warm breeze, stirring his heart. a beat he'd thought was long gone. As dusk fell, they settled on a wooden bench by the lake, the geese now quiet in the shadows. Grace shared about her mom, who'd baked for the whole town before passing, leaving the morning bloom as her legacy. "We weren't rich," she said, voice soft as moonlight, "but I had days full of laughter, stuff money can't buy." Evan watched her, her eyes mirroring the fading sky, and saw a world he'd never known, one where happiness wasn't tied to deals. "I've never lived as real as you," he said, voice low with feeling. Grace turned, smiling gently. "Then stay a day to learn how." He didn't answer, but when her hand brushed his on the bench, a warmth shot through him, like the first sun after a long winter. Evan stared at the lake, thinking, "I missed my train, but I might have just found the stop I didn't know I needed." The sun dipped behind Cedar Creek's trees, painting the sky a fiery orange, like a whisper of the day winding down. Evan Carter followed Grace Monroe into a tiny diner at the road's end, where the scent of apple pie mingled with the locals' laughter. Still sheepish from the goose chase and the VIP pastry fiasco earlier, he couldn't resist when Grace swung open the wooden door, saying, "Come on, I'm treating you to the best pie in town." Her voice was a melody he couldn't say no to. Evan plopped onto a creaky wooden chair, watching her set down a steaming apple pie, its wisps of vapor like a dreamy haze. "Dig in," she grinned, eyes twinkling like early stars. "It'll make you forget this lost day." Evan scooped a bite, sweet apples and cinnamon melted on his tongue, a warm hug from the inside out. He glanced at Grace across the table, a stray lock of hair framing her face, and blurted, "This is the best thing I've ever tasted, outside my San Francisco penthouse." Grace tilted her head, smirking. "Penthouses don't bake pies, but you could learn if you're game." Her words floated light as air, yet they hit a buried spot in him, one he'd always masked with deals and city lights. They ate in quiet for a bit, the oil lamp flickering, casting a soft glow across Grace's face. Evan set his spoon down, voice low. "You know, I've never told anyone, but I'm lonely. In San Francisco, I've got it all. Money, power, endless parties. But I crashed with my laptop instead of a real person." He gave a sad chuckle. "My ex dumped me because I only knew cash. She was right. I don't know much else." Grace watched him, no judgment, just listening, like she could see through the walls he'd built for years. She rested her hand on the table, close but not touching, and said, "Money doesn't buy good sleep or a real hug, Evan. I'm broke, but I sleep sound knowing tomorrow's got my dad, the bakery, and these folks." Her voice was gentle as moonlight through the window, yet rooted like a tree in the earth. "Maybe you didn't miss your train," she added, eyes glinting with belief. "Maybe the universe just dropped you where you're meant to be, with someone to remind you living's not just running." Evan's heart thudded, a beat he'd thought was long dead, like her words had jolted something awake. He leaned in, his hand brushing hers as he grabbed the knife to cut her a slice. Their fingers grazed, warm as a spark in the night, and their eyes locked, longer, deeper than words. Evan whispered, "You make me want to stay, Grace, even just one night." She smiled, cheeks pink. "One night's enough to learn pie cutting. Just don't burn my diner down." He laughed, but inside, he knew it wasn't about pie. It was her, quietly pulling him from his own shadows. Right as he opened his mouth, some nameless feeling bubbling up. A golden diner cat leapt onto the table, knocking the pie to the floor. "Damn cat," Grace yelped, diving to clean up, while Evan cracked up. "I'm a CEO, can't even take a cat." Grace shot him a mock glare, eyes still sparkling. "You lost to geese, don't mess with cats." They scooped up the mess together, shoulders brushing, and when their hands met in the chaos, a warmth spread through him, like a sunset he'd never noticed in San Francisco. He looked at her, thinking, "I don't want to leave, not for pie, but for her." Grace caught his gaze, and in that instant, they both knew. An invisible thread had tied them together, even after just one day. Dawn blazed over Cedar Creek, a gentle goodbye from the little town to Evan Carter. He stood silently on the platform, suitcase at his feet, his pastry-stained suit now an invisible thread tying him to Grace Monroe, the girl who'd woken his heart after years of slumber. Last night, her eyes had glowed like firelight in the diner, her voice soft as a night breeze, and that fleeting touch as they picked up pie crumbs. It all carved itself into him like a song he couldn't shake. But the train's whistle blared, coldly yanking him back to San Francisco, to his empty penthouse and days without her. Evan had waited at the Morning Bloom that morning, eyes glued to the door, aching to see her in that flower-dusted apron, her smile like sunrise. But only her dad emerged, handing him a small bag of apple turnovers with a note. For the man who forgot how to smile. Thanks for remembering again. Grace. He unfolded it, tracing her shaky handwriting, and his heart cracked. Tears welled, a rarity since his mom's passing. She didn't come, he whispered, voice catching, clutching the bag like it was the last piece of her he could hold. I'd stay, just to see her one more time. The train rolled out, Cedar Creek fading in the window, but Grace lingered in every breath. He bit into a turnover, sweetness now tinged with a bitter ache, like the longing soaking his soul. No number, no way to reach her, just Grace, a beacon lighting the dark corners of him. I'm such an idiot, he laughed hoarsely, eyes stinging as he stared out. One day and I ditched my whole world to stay with her. The train rattled on, dragging him back to San Francisco, but his heart stayed in Cedar Creek, where he'd found a piece of himself he didn't know was missing. At the station, his assistant rushed up, yelling, Boss, where have you been? The company's a mess. Evan didn't hear, hugging the bag to his chest like it held Grace's warmth. He walked through the city's glaring lights, but his eyes saw only Cedar Creek's sunset. His hands felt only her gentle touch. I didn't want to leave her, he murmured, voice lost in the wind, but I wasn't brave enough to stay. The bag was all he had left, a silent promise, a lingering regret, and a faint hope that fate might bring him back to her. A week had passed since Evan Carter left Cedar Creek, but Grace Monroe lingered in him like a smoldering flame that wouldn't die. In San Francisco, he stood in his sleek glass office, staring down at the glittering city, eyes hollow. Meetings, emails, phone buzzes, all just noise compared to Grace's clear laugh, the faint scent of apple pie in his memory. He pulled open his desk drawer, grabbed the now stale bag of turnovers, and reread her note, for the man who forgot how to smile. His heart stung. He couldn't smile, couldn't live like before, couldn't forget her. Midway through a tense meeting, as his assistant pitched a $1 million plan, Evan shot up, voice rough. Cancel it, I'm done. The room went silent, his assistant stammering, Boss, what? He didn't answer, just grabbed his coat, bolted to the station, and booked a ticket to Cedar Creek. On the train, he clutched her note, whispering, Grace, if you don't want me, I'll go. But I have to try, just once. No suitcase, no suit, just a heart pounding for a girl he'd known one day. The train rolled into Cedar Creek amid a spring fair, lanterns glowing, kids' laughter ringing out. Evan tore through the crowd, asking, Where's Grace Monroe? Anyone know her? An old lady pointed. She's at the church, teaching kids to bake. He sprinted there, breath ragged, and froze at the door. Grace stood inside, hands dusted with flour, her smile as bright as the sunlight he remembered. But she wasn't alone. A tall guy stood beside her, chatting and laughing. Evan's chest tightened. Am I too late? He stepped forward, voice shaky. Grace! She looked up, eyes widening, dropping a wooden spoon. Evan? What? What are you doing here? The guy frowned. Who's this? Grace shot back coolly. A guy who missed his train and left. Evan closed the gap, ignoring the stranger, words spilling out. I came back, not to buy this town, not to run again, but to stay with you. I ditched everything in San Francisco because I can't live without you. Grace blinked, voice catching. Are you crazy? Coming back for one day? Evan grabbed her hand, trembling but eyes steady. One day was enough to know I need you more than anything I've ever had. Grace, I won't promise the world, but I'll give you all I am. The kids cheered. The guy stepped back, and Grace stared, tears glinting. You're really staying? Evan nodded. If you'll give me a shot. She smiled, pulling him into a hug, and this time, nothing could stop them. Under the glowing lanterns of Cedar Creek's spring fair, Evan Carter stood hand in hand with Grace Monroe, her embrace a warm breeze chasing away every chill inside him. The kids around them cheered, one yelling, "Miss Grace has a boyfriend!" Grace blushed, nudging Evan. "Don't let them embarrass you." He grinned, his truest smile since missing that train, and said, "Embarrassed? I just ran 1,000 miles to tell you this. I thought I came to buy the world, but I only want to keep one thing, you." Grace gazed at him, eyes twinkling like night stars, smirking. "I don't need a CEO, Evan. I need a guy who'll wash dishes after apple pie." He winked. "I'm a quick study. Just don't expect decent coffee. You know I'm hopeless." Her laugh rang out clear as wind chimes, and she tugged him into the fair, where baked goods and music swirled. Hand in hand, they wandered the stalls, the world shrinking to just them. No San Francisco, no penthouse, only Cedar Creek and a fresh start. A year later, Evan was no longer Silicon Valley's icy CEO. He ran a small company branch from town, mostly on his laptop, but spent his days at the Morning Bloom with Grace. He tried baking, his first batch a charred disaster, earning him burnt pie uncle from Grace's class of kids. "I'm a millionaire, not a chef," he grumbled, but Grace hugged his shoulders, whispering, "You're mine, burnt or not." He kissed her forehead. "I'll start over. For you." In the final scene, they stood in the cozy cafe, sunset streaming through the window, lighting them up as they joked with a gaggle of kids. One tugged Evan's shirt. "Pie guy, make me coffee." Evan shot Grace a look, but she slid a mug his way. "No dishwater this time. Go for it, Mr. VIP." He fumbled, spilling a bit, but handed it to the kid, who beamed. "Better than Miss Grace's." Grace fake pouted, and Evan laughed loud. "See? I'm getting there." Side by side, hands clasped, they looked out at the little town that was now home. Evan murmured, "I missed my train to find you, and I'm not going anywhere." Grace leaned into him, replying, "Then stay forever. There's plenty of pie left." Under the sunset, they were a perfect picture, a love sparked by a wrong train, landing at the right stop.